Welcome, everyone, to Threshold. This podcast with Emily and myself is about living in the in-between spaces with intentionality and awareness and compassion. Emily, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I can do that. I'm Emily Conway. I write a Thin Space newsletter here on Substack, and that is mostly personal essays written about living in an intentional and aware life. So you that can give you a hint as to why I'm doing this podcast. Anyway, so I'm there on Substack.
Yes. And my name's Julia Reimet. I write Embodied Living. And I write, about the intersection between our physical, tangible life and our more invisible, emotional life. I think of as our subtle body life. And so I write in that liminal space. So Emily and I came together because while we sort of approach liminal life from slightly different angles, we both understand living in the in-between spaces.
Yes.
Yeah. And so welcome everyone. Like always, I want to encourage everyone to leave comments when you have ideas that from what we're talking about. Even if you don't agree with what we're talking about, we completely welcome it. It makes the conversation so much richer and more interesting. We love hearing from people. So you are very welcome to chime in. And today we are talking about the intersection between stillness and movement. And I thought of this topic because at this time of year, it's often very movement heavy. And what I mean by that is people are hustling and bustling all over the place and they have their lists and sometimes they're traveling. And it's a time of, generally speaking, a lot of movement. And then often what happens as an antidote from that busyness, that feeling of movement, is we apply stillness. And so people will talk about, oh, I need to take a break. I need to rest, in their mind. Instead of being busy, you have to be still. And still typically means sitting. So if we're talking about everyday life, the difference between running around doing errands or maybe sitting and journaling with the birds, if we're talking about practice, we have the same thing, this kind of dualistic thinking, right? We have sitting on a cushion when we're meditating. And then sometimes we have a movement practice, which could be yoga or Tai Chi or walking meditation. But we tend to think of these two opposites as one as an antidote for the other. We can even say the other way, where like we're sitting too much at our desk. Oh, I've got to get moving, right? And that is totally makes sense. It's smart. It's a good practice. I have zero problems with it. However, in this busy time, sometimes we feel this busyness and we don't have the opportunity to be still. And so then the question comes, how can we find that spaciousness that stillness can give us, even though we have errands that we need to do, or even though we got to go through security at the airport, or even though we've got to drive to get to grandma's house, right? And so what I've been experimenting with in my own practice and in my own life is what I think of as feeling the stillness underneath the movement. And so all of you, if you're listening to this right now, you might be doing something in your life. And we can take a moment and just keep doing what you're doing. And if you just kind of bring yourself into your body, kind of notice what you're feeling. Maybe you notice your breath. Even though you're still in your life, driving, or let's say you're doing the dishes, you can notice that within that movement, there can be a spacious sense of stillness. It's not an either or. It's not a when you like, it's not like finding the pauses in the movement.
Mhm.
It's kind of both together. And if you want to approach this from the other angle, if you have a seated practice or if you're sitting right now, you can be still and check in with your body and ground yourself. And notice that there's never a state of absolute stillness. Your breath is always moving. Your heart is always moving. And the more you feel into your body, you'll notice there's all these little micro movements that are happening all the time. And you'll see this in nature as well, right? A tree, even without a breeze, appears to be still. And yet, if you sit with that tree and notice, there's always movement in that tree, right? A leaf will move, a branch will move. And so, what we actually are living in always, and that I don't think we fully mm, acknowledge in our everyday life, is we're always living in this mixture of movement and stillness together. And I feel like in this busy time of year, being able to feel into that is one way that we can get the restorative qualities of stillness imbued in the movement that maybe our life requires right now, in that busyness that is required of us, so that we can be busy in a restful, restorative way because we're always connected to the stillness.
Mm. Mhm.
So, Emily, take it from here. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Oh, I love that introduction to this topic. Um, because as you were talking, um, I was thinking about how do we begin to practice that kind of thing, you know? Um, but then you went on to say that nothing is ever really still. Things are always, there's movement somewhere, always. Um, but then also there is stillness within the movement always in the natural world, in our bodies, because we are the natural world. And just that knowledge and your reminder of that um, gave me kind of a context to explore where where I would find that, where I would go finding it. It was a context that I hadn't thought about before. When we talked about this topic, I thought, oh yeah, okay, stillness and movement, movement and stillness. Okay, got it. And I thought of things that I do where I experience that. I talk a lot about swimming on this podcast. I experience a lot of stillness in swimming, even though every single part of me is moving, and there's water moving around me. But I experience a deep sense of stillness when I swim. But then to add that piece of the stillness and the movement always coexisting together, you know, and it's really just a kind of an unnatural separation to say, okay, sit over here and don't move, you know, um, or go, crazy and I don't know, go to the grocery store before Christmas, the day before Christmas. Everything crazy. That's what I think of as, the worst frenetic kind of movement that I was in the grocery store yesterday and it was not a fun experience. But it is so so what does that do for us? How does that help us? If I'm in the grocery store and it's really crazy, which it was yesterday. And, after a while and a full cart of groceries, I was talking to my husband saying, I have got to get out of here, because it had worn me out. How can I tap into the stillness um, in the grocery store?
Yeah, so I think your impulse, I have to get out, is
Yeah.
smart. right? And it's back to what I said in the beginning. That is skillful means in some situations is to apply the antidote,
Right.
right? And there is nothing wrong with that, right? So there are times when I'm really feeling frantic and I'm going to apply the antidote by getting out to some place that's more still. And that is 100% a useful way of understanding stillness and movement, right? I guess I'm offering this as an additional way to view it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like how to do it, how to access it, there's this quality. So if I'm really busy and I can feel the movement and I tap into that and really feel it, like experience it, right? How and in the beginning you sometimes start from your head down, like the typical exercise, what's my breath feeling? What am I feeling in your body? But eventually that movement is the experience. You don't think about it, you feel it from the inside out, right? And if you tap into that movement, for me, the doorway is often this feeling like underneath it, stillness, it's almost like the mattress, the pillow supporting it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I can find that underneath, then they can merge together. I
Mm-hmm.
can't always go straight to the merging. So sometimes I enter with this feeling like surrounding the movement is the stillness,
Yeah.
and then from there they can merge. So I share that because I think different people are going to have different doorways into it, right? And it has to do with how we experience the world. For some people who are maybe more visual than I am, maybe a visualization would be the way in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe you could think of um, movement as like smoke going up and,
Mm-hmm.
and stillness as the air that the smoke is in.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be different doorways for different people.
Yeah.
But I'm offering in this busy time is a way of an additional idea besides this antidote idea, which is a good and useful idea. But another way, when the circumstances don't allow us to apply the antidote,
Yeah.
then can we just be with it and still have that real spacious sense so that the movement isn't contracting us, but we're able to be in the movement, in the freneticness. We have a grocery store here in Madison. It's huge. It's huge. Woodman's. It's it is the most miserable shopping experience you can have. It is owned by the employees. It is cheap, right? It is good deals. It's huge. It's multi-ethnic because they are catering to people who shop and really need a deal, right? So it is like, I feel like it's blocks long. It's probably not, but it's huge. And so frantic, yes, people weaponize their carts, going around and I want that broccoli and, like, and, and so can you be in there with this sense of spaciousness? And, as I talk about being in Woodman's and, the other part, I think the other way to access this stillness and the movement is by opening your heart to it, right? So again, instead of closing down, right, that person just bumped their cart in front of me and, I was going to turn left and that person could, I mean, there's almost like highways in this grocery store, right? And you have to wait to make a left turn into an aisle, right? And and can you have an open heart with it? Right? That would be another way to find that stillness in the movement.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, because we can't always get out of the grocery store. I mean, you still got stuff on your list, or you don't want to just leave your cart and walk out, you know? And of course, this is a metaphor for so many other things. You can't always just leave a family gathering that's pushing all your buttons. Uh,
Right.
there's so many other places where this applies. And so then what do? You know? And I totally get that description, Julia, of it being kind of a mattress or something that you can like rest in. It's a way of resting parts of yourself or resting yourself um, in the midst of stuff that's designed not to create rest, you know? And I think that's such a useful tool and practice, not just for the super frenetic times, although absolutely, but just sort of daily to check in. I know for me, I tend to be pretty wired. um, my nervous system is very, very attuned um, to everything, and there's lots of reasons for that, but it is, and so it's real easy for me to just track absolutely everything that's happening around me. And that can easily, very quickly become overwhelming. Even when it's not a crazy grocery store on Christmas Eve, you know? Um, so to be able to reset, and again, I'm using words that, are coming to me, but to be able to drop down, take a breath, you know, and sort of ground or settle myself in this quieter space is so helpful because it keeps me from um physically it keeps me from aching at the end of the day. You know, it keeps me from shaking all the time, which is what I did for years. Um and it just reminds me that I'm here and that it's okay. So all of that, um, it reminds me that I can find stillness because I can find it. And also, it helps me in my relationship with movement that just because things are busy or crazy or whatever, I don't necessarily need to be frightened of those things or see them as a threat. I can make good decisions about how much time I want to spend um, in places that really wear me out. But I also can develop a relationship with busyness that's healthier, if that makes sense. Um, if you guys have thoughts about this, anybody who's on here, um, how do you find where are the places that you find stillness and movement? Where are the places you find movement and stillness? What's your experience of this? We'd love to hear. Steve. Steve read my mind. Um, is it's a difficult practice, but one thing I do is to try to slow everything down, to focus on the moment, one movement, one action at a time, as if it's almost a still life scene before me. I love that. I can totally relate to that. When my nervous system is crazy and is taken in too much, to focus on one thing and just begin to kind of,
Right.
yeah,
And so I kind of want to add on to some of the things that you're hinting about, Emily, and
right,
not making any assumptions about you or your situation, but you're saying things that I've heard other people say, which is that sometimes there are situations that are just too much for any number of reasons. And the people I'm thinking of, it's often from trauma history.
mm,
And so there's an idea that you should be able to like calm your nervous system down and reach some sort of way of managing things, right? And the holidays are loaded. So what sometimes the thing that works is you touch in and then leave. And so Steve's thing about one moment is like a really good practice for that, right? Maybe you can't be at the grocery store. We'll stick with that image, right? And fully do your grocery shopping. being able to find the spaciousness in the experience, right? But maybe you could touch into spaciousness for one moment and then back out to whatever feels like a safer, easier place for you, right? And that safer, easier place might be with some tightness and tension and protection up, right? You may need to go to that protected place. And so there's no right or wrong, right? But I just want to take a moment and especially because we're talking about the holidays, some of these things are really loaded with past traumas, habitual patterns, lots of things that are very potent and strong. And so like always, we give ourselves a break. We are compassionate, and to not think that being guarded is a wrong state of affairs at your holiday meal or at the grocery store. But in terms of you, when you mention not wanting to hurt at the end of the day, right? Finding the moments when you can touch into spaciousness, even if it's for one moment, and then go back to what you need to do. Sometimes that can soften the edges,
Mm-hmm.
that things aren't quite as tight as they were. Maybe instead of 100%, you drop it down to 99, 98%. And honestly, there are situations where that is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
And so just to kind of, I think the original thing I started with is working a little bit with our dualistic right and wrong approach to this topic, right? Movement versus stillness, and I'm going to be this way or that way. And to know that we can be all both, yes, no, neither, right? All at once.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I'm so glad you said that because it's so important. If you have developed, and this is my experience, a response to certain situations that requires your nervous system to be real haywire, and that's what's safe, then, demanding that your nervous system be otherwise is a violence to yourself. And in my own practice, I have found that just those little touches, as you say, make such a difference in the long term. In my, they s- they spread, not all,
Mm-hmm.
not all the time, but they do. They have over time, over a decade or whatever. You begin to find that space. At least I begin to find that space more frequently,
Mm-hmm.
where there's more times where I can touch in, touch in, touch in. Maybe not for longer, but more frequently. Or sometimes it is longer. So, I mean, I really get what Steve says here about try, try, try. And again, it's not. And I know it's a practice, and just being with it and holding yourself compassionately and understanding that there is not a wrong here or a should. There just is. And I want to go back and go back to the beginning where we were talking about this supposed dichotomy between stillness and movement. There just isn't one. And there isn't one around how we experience those two things in our lives. There isn't a right or wrong or this, you should be all over here or all over here. Um, so yeah, I think that's really important, super important.
It reminds me of an exercise I did years ago and when I took yoga teacher training. And we did a meditation. We were just sitting and we were still and we were breathing. And we were supposed to feel how every bone in our body responded to the movement of the breath. And so you could take like your little pinky toe, and your little pinky toe, at first glance was just sitting there. It was pretty still, right? And could you feel how that bone moved in response to the breath? No, I would say at the time, I don't remember feeling like I 100% thought the whole exercise, right? But it is a really interesting inquiry, right? How are we constantly responding to movement and our breath? At the very least, we know our breath and our heart is always in movement, right? And so from that movement, all of us is, every part of our body is linked, right? And so from that, you can imagine that everything else is moving in response.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
So that, if you think about that, and sort of extend that metaphor, right? That everything around us is moving and responding.
Yeah. Yeah.
It changes the relationship between movement and stillness.
Yes. Yes. That's that context.
Yeah.
It's about living in that context and being in it and through it all the time.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Steve wrote, it's that practice that contemplatives are involved in, holding multiple truths at once. How do we hold a storm in a teacup?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. I think well, in certain traditions, many of them, Western traditions, there's a lot of supposed black and white. This, that, that, that. Um, and our brains have kind of adapted around those particular structures when reality doesn't work that way. Natural world does not work that way, and we don't either. And so that practice of being with what actually is, which is what Julie's been talking about, um, is a practice of being with ourselves as we are. And for me, that is a healing practice. That is a healing practice, and a very human one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are at the bottom of the hour here.
We always get there so quickly. It seems like. Do you want me to share, Julia, what's going on here in the next little
Sure. Sure.
else? Any final comments, Julia?
But if anyone else has final comments, put them in the
Yeah.
comment feed and we'll read them before we sign off.
Yes, please do. Okay. So we are going to take next Monday off. We're going to indulge in the liminal space between
Between days.
Yep, and the new year. So we're going to take the 28th, Monday the 28th off. We'll be back January 5th with silence and internal work, which I think is a very apt topic for deep winter in the Northern Hemisphere, where we do draw in. Things do tend to get quieter. They go inside. And we're going to talk about the connection between silence and internal work. We're going to talk about what silence is, what it means. And you can probably guess from this discussion that it's not just being quiet. Has lots of other permutations. So we're going to do that January 5th. We'll look forward to seeing you guys here then. And thank you always for being with us. We just
Yeah.
enjoy it. And enjoy your holidays as much as
Happy holidays, whatever holidays you do or don't celebrate. Enjoy this dark,
yeah,
still time of the year,
yes.
the end of the year.
Yep.
And I want to thank everyone who's been joining us this year for these podcasts. We've just had such a lovely time with it. We love the discussions. We love the comments we get afterwards. And so that I count on my list of one of the blessings of this last year is the fact that we've been able to share this time with all of you. So thank you very, very much.
Yes, and I can just second that. It's been an absolute joy. We really, really love it. So thank you guys. Thank you. All right, we'll see you next year.
Come off. Go to the grocery store. Enjoy yourself.
Right. Oh,
Okay. Bye,
bye.
everyone.